So we start the playoffs where I root for the Saints, and then they fall in the first round. Then I decide to go and root for my brother's hometown team as he lives in Baltimore. I root for the Ravens. Then they lose. At least at the very minimum, I still can say go Tigers and congrats LSU. But with that being said, welcome back to Stat 7 Sports. I am Caleb. I am the contained Kunas, Louisiana's one and only. And this one I'm going over the AFC Championship and NFC Championship games. I'll give you a brief recap over last week's game since I didn't put a video out then. But without further ado, with the AFC, we have Kansas City, which most people kind of expected to make it, and Tennessee, who they had to beat the two juggernauts of the season with the Patriots, then with the Ravens, where I actually did predict the Titans to beat the Patriots, and I'm so glad for it, but I thought they had no chance against Baltimore. I thought this was going to be a one versus two in the AFC. And then the NFC was going to be one that was an upset based off of seeding. But thanks, Saints. But in this case, we have wildcard rounds we have this round between Tennessee, the biggest surprise, and Kansas City. As you can see, Kansas City beat the Patriots 20-13, and then they beat the Ravens. Both those games on the road. Patriots in Foxborough and the Ravens in Baltimore to get here. And the Chiefs had the first round bye, and then they just blew out the Texans after being down 24-0. They wiped the floor the rest of the game 51-7. And to just illustrate how big of a blowout was after it, I think this fits pretty well on how it was. So the Chiefs put this out in the middle of the game. Chiefs fans, we are sorry to report, due to supporting the Chiefs continually finding the end zone, basically, we scored too much. So we run out of fireworks. Sorry. But on the other side, I did not see the Titans running over Baltimore. They constantly got pressure on Lamar Jackson, and they were able to make them have to come back early. They got Baltimore in a huge deficit, and they made Baltimore become a pass-first team. They made Lamar Jackson throw 49 passes. He was 31 for 49. Actually, quite conveniently the same completion percentage as Joe Burrow in the title game. But Burrow's completely more efficient on that. And in this case, if you're making Lamar Jackson throw 49 times, he's going to make mistakes. Like, you made him try to go for chunk plays more often than not towards the latter part of the game, especially in the second half, and he had fumbleitis. He threw a bad interception, and really it was just credit Tennessee's defense. They've beaten the top two teams in the AFC this year. They played Kansas City earlier in the year and beat them 35-32. And going back into that game, if you go through all the stats off of it, Kansas City won every single stat line besides even time of possession, besides running. And that's whenever Henry ran for over 180 yards. Then you had Tannehill early on only threw for 193, 2 touchdowns, 13 for 19, no picks. But in that case, Mahomes throws for over 400 yards. Damian Williams has a solid game. I think it was 19 carries, 77 yards. The turnovers were even. They both had one turnover each. And time possession was majorly in Kansas City's favor. But they weren't, they could never really get into the red zone. And the one matching, both teams had a fumble in that game. Tennessee had the fumble return for a touchdown by Rashawn Evans, the rookie out of Alabama. So that was a 54-yard return. That really set them up. That just set them up well for the rest of the game and helped through essentially just Henry being consistent throughout the rest of the year and their defense getting turnovers whenever they needed to be, helped them get to this 6th seed. Now, very similarly to how they were in the regular season, Tannehill actually being more productive than just in this previous matchup and in both of the playoff games. In both of these games, I thought last week, in order for the Titans to end up winning, Tannehill would have to be big. He would have to be able to get into his other wide receiver options, not just A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown also had to show up. Now, I get for the Patriots game, he was going to be bottled up regardless of what really happened because he's a one-on-one on Stephon Gilmore. But for the Ravens game, it's you either get Peters or you get who's the other one? Marlon Humphrey, the one who they actually call a really bad call early in the year against DeAndre Hopkins, and actually made an error earlier. Lamar Jackson was 31 for 59. That's a lot worse. That's just over 50%. Now, just like this game and the NFC, both of these matchups have played out before, where you had Tennessee and San Francisco winning both of those games. Tennessee in a 35-32 matchup, and San Francisco blowing out Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But I don't see both of those going this way because everything else, everything had to go in their favor. However, everything went outside their favor in giving up passing yardage. Their secondary got torched. Their run defense held up. It was solid, but not great. It was a very the definition of a bend but don't break defense. If you end up having to do this last time, they'll put another 50 bomb on you, and Kansas City will coast into the Super Bowl. And in this case, I am still going to predict Kansas City to go to the Super Bowl. Now, most of the offensive stats in this game are going to end up favoring Kansas City. Mahomes is a 4,000-yard passer, despite him being out for a few games. The only stats that Tennessee would be favoring on offense is how much they run the ball and how often they score in the red zone. Where Derrick Henry's a bowling ball. He's gonna run. He's gonna get his numbers 100 to 150 yards. He's gonna shorten the game. So the percentages of him running the ball, of course, is going to be higher. But Kansas City has more of the big play opportunity. They average more yards per play. They complete more passes. Although Tannehill has been respectable on that end, but in both of the playoff games, he's had to throw. He actually threw for less yards in this game in the Ravens game than he did in the Patriots game. Neither game he broke over 100 yards. But in the regular season, he's actually been quite comparable in stats with Mahomes per game. And defensively, towards the latter part of the year, Kansas City actually has become the better defense. While early on, a lot of the NFL slacked against them because of the fact that that they thought, oh, Mahomes is just going to have to be Breeze-esque of the past, 5-10 years, where Kansas City has no defense and they just have to outscore everyone. While they did show that last week against the Texans, especially towards the latter part of the year, they were just blowing people out without any of their opponents getting close. At the point where the Raiders could have could have helped themselves get into the playoffs. And with the last couple of games, they weren't even close. They're making it to where even whenever teams get into the red zone, because of the Honey Badger and because they've been getting people healthy on the defensive line, they've been stopping people from scoring in the red zone because people are having to score. One, because they're having to score touchdowns on them to keep up, and that's having other teams attempt more fourth down conversions and not converting as much as when Mahomes was hurt and whenever they had Matt Moore at quarterback. But just to finish this off, I've been rambling a little too long on it, but I think it's going to be similar to what most people actually end up expecting off of it. Henry is actually going to help keep this close, and yes, Tannehill will actually throw more than 100 yards this game. I don't see how he's going 3 straight games without throwing 100. Yes, last week he was 7 for 14. If they win, Tannehill's throwing more than 14 passes. Henry's ran for 180 yards in the past 3 games. He's going to have to repeat that in here, and they're going to have to get a key turnover against Kansas City or 2 to make sure Kansas City does not have enough possessions to get big plays against them. Because Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, need I go on with it? Then Damian Williams. Shoot, I remember watching a game when he was playing against the Chargers, and also last week against the Texans, where he would just break out of tackles from linebackers and secondary defensive backs that he should have been down with like a 5-yard gain. Ends up going for a touchdown. He is very underrated as a running back, and while Tennessee, like the Patriots, don't have anybody who's exceptional on defense, they are quite a solid group overall. But just solid is not going to beat Mahomes. Mahomes didn't have to go through this playoffs having to play Brady, and that's going to help. That's going to get them to the Super Bowl. I'm going to go 31-17. It'll stay close for the first half, then you'll get a big play late in the game. Late in the third quarter, just kind of break it open. Now for definitely the more interesting one. See, we couldn't get the third tiebreaker that you'd get with the NFC West with San Francisco and the San Francisco and the Seahawks. Because the Packers ended up beating the Seahawks 28-23, even though they barely had to hold on against Seattle. As after both these teams had the bye in the wild card round, they end up winning in the divisional round. The 49ers just beat the Vikings in every statistical category to where 38 minutes to 21 minutes of time. They ran the ball 47 times with Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, and a little bit of Matt Breida. I didn't expect that combination. They had Coleman be the big contributor in the running game. And they made it to where Garoppolo didn't have to pass the ball much at all. They let him do the Tennessee offense and throw the ball 19 times, 110 yards. If you need Garoppolo, who's considered at this point the weakest part of the team, to throw less than 20 passes, San Francisco is going to win a lot of games that way. And really, the Vikings only threw 29 passes and ran the ball 11 times. 32 plays, not including the sacks. They just never had the ball enough to do anything. Now, Green Bay, they had to struggle with Seattle. Early on, they controlled the game. They were dominant in the first half, ended up leading 21-6 at the half, where with a late touchdown by Green Bay, kind of looked like it was going to get out of reach at that point. But one thing, like the Packers usually do it to where they're slow in the first half, but then they pick it up just enough to beat their opponents in the second. Rodgers ends up coming on. He'll get to Devontae Adams. He'll find one of his, choose any of his receivers between Allison, between Kumaro, between Alan Lazard, between Jimmy Graham, and then you have Aaron Jones on the ground getting his touches, getting the ball into the red zone, scoring touchdowns to get close to Ahman Green's record on rushing touchdowns. And against the Seahawks, he was bottled up fairly well. 21 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown and 2 touchdowns. Yes, he did get his normal production in the red zone, but really just a little bit more than 3 yards a carry. Actually, it is 3 yards a carry. And the one thing that, like the Packers, they have a running game that's not Rodgers, and they have one top receiver that they go to. The only receiver that had multiple catches that wasn't Devontae Adams, whenever he went for 8 catches, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, was Jimmy Graham. 3 catches, 49 yards. Everyone else, just 1 single catch. The Seahawks, on the other hand, their entire offense ran through Russell Wilson. Marshawn Lynch had no running room. Really, since he's been signed, he is the consistent 1 to 2 yard per carry gain. And that includes all his jumps into the end zone, which has been, 1 yard runs. And yes, they could have, I know they were trying to get, they could have gotten it to where he got his redeem with trying to get the red zone late and finally running at the 2 yard line. Actually, the 1 yard line, but they had to delay a game that kept him out. But Seattle had more options for Russell Wilson to throw to, but a lot of what Russell Wilson does is scramble drills. And he got pressured a decent bit of the night by both the Smith brothers, Zadarius and Preston Smith. They're not brothers, but both have been the top sack leaders and pressures from the Packers. And Rodgers just had to get by whenever Jadeveon Clowney wasn't on the field and getting pressure on him. And then they got the 1 sack with Shaquille Griffin, which was actually kind of nice. You get Shaquille Griffin get the sack, and then right behind him is his brother that comes in. That was a nice moment. But with this game, I don't see this being, Devontae Adams going with one of his 2 touchdowns against Diggs in the secondary. And Coleman and Mostert just got through the Minnesota defense with a strong offensive line play. They would just push back that front 7. Really, Danielle Hunter was able to get pressure on Garoppolo a little bit, and they did cause 1 bad pick to Eric Kendricks, and nearly got another one that Kendricks dropped. But when you're able to run the ball 47 times and just control the clock that clearly, 27-10 probably wasn't. It probably was closer than the actual. It probably wasn't as close as the score actually said. Now, statistically for this game, pretty much everything is in favor of San Francisco. Both teams are 13-3, but during the regular season, Green Bay was definitely the lesser of the two. And most people were expecting this to be a San Francisco against New Orleans matchup. So the 49ers are more productive per play, more points per play, higher completion percentage per play, higher third down conversion per play. If you get in the red zone, yes, San Francisco has to settle for a lot of field goals, and they actually have not been able. They don't score as often as you'd like. Defensively, San Francisco's been one of the best defensive teams in the league until they got hurt. 12 points given up in the first half of the season, 26 points given in the last half of the season. They showed with Alexander coming back and with D Ford coming back and sorry, I just can't see. They showed that Minnesota wasn't going to be able to run the ball. They're going to make Kirk Cousins beat them. And while Kirk Cousins didn't do bad, one thing Frisco does very well, I underestimated how good Sherman was. Well, I actually was right on for the fact that he is still one of the best cover corners. He may not have the speed to stay deep with wide receivers, but one thing he's able to do, he's able to lock down that top one receiver. You did not see Diggs get much in that game. And for the Packers to actually be able to do anything in this one, they have to make it to where Davante Adams isn't the only target that they're able to get. They have to be able to get the ball to Jimmy Graham, who, like, that was a close call that gave the Packers the win to seal it. They have to get Kumaro. They have to get Lazard, who I actually think will be that second option receiving the ball. Alan Lazard. Probably been the most consistent wide receiver not named Davante Adams. I forgot about Valdez-Scantling. That's actually the one he would need to target. And he has to get more production out of Jones than 3 yards of carry. But I don't... Like, this one's going to be... It's not going to be nearly as bad as that 37-8 matchup earlier in the season. Because you had it to where San Francisco controlled the clock. They made Rodgers fumble. They gave him constant pressure. And he had to do constant dump-offs the entire game where it was... he had 20 for 33 for 105 yards. That's barely over 3 yards a complete 3 yards an attempt. This game's going to be worse if that's the case. But I'll still see it to be a 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl because one of their three running backs is going to be on. It may not be Coleman like last week. It may end up being Mostert or Breida this time. But they really didn't need Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. They didn't need Emmanuel Sanders. All of them had 3 catches apiece last week. Plus Bourne, who actually dropped a touchdown last week. But still a quality number 3 wide receiver. But at this point, I don't see Rodgers being able to will the team past the 49ers in this showdown. It's going to be a lot closer than that one. I don't think San Francisco is scoring as much, and I don't think Green Bay is going to be held down as much. They showed that even whenever Green Bay experiences pressure to Rodgers, they're still able to get points on the board in bunches, which that's the only way Green Bay is going to be able to win on it. They have to do what San Francisco did in Week 12. They have to jump on the 49ers early, make Garoppolo make a mistake because you can expect him to get an interception in a game. You have to take advantage of that one. uh, you're not going to end up containing all the targets, but you have to be selective on it. Because Jair Alexander is probably going to be on Sanders. You have safety play and linebacker play between Blake Matthews and Blake Martinez. Kevin King's going to be on likely Deebo Samuel. You have to get Kenny Clark and both the Smith brothers to get pressure on this quarterback. And any of the deep attempts that they have, they're going to have to get, like, Amos and Savage are actually going to have to be very versatile. Savage is very young as a rookie, but you're going to get a red-on-red Super Bowl. 49ers, Chiefs. It's going to bring you back in the day whenever you think of the last two teams Montana played for. So, 28-24 49ers. And I'll give a preview on that Super Bowl matchup in the near future, probably in another week and a half. But for then, I'm Caleb. This is Stat Stuff in Sports. I'm the Contained Kunas, and I'll see y'all next time.